All right, so again, I'm just so, ladies, I'm just so honored to be here. As I said earlier, I was sitting in one of these chairs just weeping most of the weekend because I truly was completely broken in tiny little pieces. I had just walked away from a very, very toxic 3-year relationship. I was definitely a prodigal daughter. My boyfriend was not a believer. I mean, it was just a big mess. And, you know, I just showed up. And so here we are now, and look at what we're doing, right? So do not allow Satan to not allow you to use your story, okay? Because obviously all of you are here because Jesus invited you here. I didn't invite you, okay? Jesus did. So this is all about Jesus right now. So I'm going to read you this because I find it pretty profound when I found it. Okay, letting go of things we love, think we love, or just really want to work out is so incredibly difficult. And sometimes God calls us to let go of things we simply don't want to. A comfortable job, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a home, a community, a way of life, a dream, convenience in our lives. Sometimes it's heartbreaking when He tells us to let it go. Why? God, this is comfortable. This is what I've been working for. This is what I want. You might even hear Him say, I have something else for you. But even still, it can be hard to believe. It can be scary to take a leap of faith, having no idea where you will fall and where you will land. I don't know why God calls us away from certain things, but I do know that when He says He has something else for us, it means He has something else for us. Better. He has something that will bring Him more glory and therefore fulfill our hearts more. Living in God's will for us, even if it means letting go of something we don't want to let go of, will always be the best plan for us. So, if you are hearing the whisper, there's more, He means it. And if it's something not until we let go that He can put in our lives something else, He wants to show you exactly what He has for you. Trust His plan. It might not be comfortable, but it's where God needs you, and it's exactly where He wants you to be. Okay? So, I'm going to start by telling you that I did not want my life to be the way it was, but unfortunately it is what it is, right? So, about 4 or 5 years ago, I've been divorced now 7 years. So 4 or 5 years ago, my pastor's wife said, you need to go to this program called the 4th Generation Curses. I'm like, okay. So I went there, and the first session was scary to me. They were talking in tongues. I didn't even know what that meant. They were talking in tongues, and they were, you know, it was just kind of creepy and scary to me, truthfully. And I'm like, okay, why am I here and what is going on? Then the next, after lunch, we had another session. They had a circle on this paper, identifying things that may be what our problem is. And mine was sexual. So I circled all the sexual stuff. And then they kind of put us in a group based on what you circled. And then they had us standing up, and they just had us close our eyes. And then the leader started walking around, again, talking in tongue and just praying over us. And then all of a sudden, I started smelling chlorine. And then I started seeing this vision of this little girl in a blue dress. And then I started seeing my mom and dad fighting at a pool party. And then I saw a little girl being molested in a garage. I was a little girl at 4. So, but it freed me, because then I recognized where my path started. So it started at 4, being molested by a neighbor, Mr. Cameron. And I remember every time I'd go see my dad on the holidays, I would ask him how Mr. Cameron was. Now, why would you be asking me that, right? We're not even living in the same town anymore, but I would always ask about Mr. Cameron well, because he was the one who molested me. And it's just amazing how God can put all your pieces together, right? Mm-hmm. So my parents divorced when we were 5. My dad left, he never even said goodbye to us. My mom told us that my dad just decided he didn't want to be with us anymore. So I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe I took that burden on at 5 years old, that they found out something happened to me at 4, and it was my fault that my parents broke up because they were fighting over it. I'm not sure, but that's kind of how I feel I must have taken that on. So my parents divorced. We moved to, we were living in Michigan. We moved to Florida with my grandmother and grandfather. My mom wasn't very educated. She did the best she could. She, just tried to take care of us. So we lived with my grandmother. Well, I had a twin brother and a younger brother, and my younger brother was, quote, the Wilson side of the family, my grandmother's side, my mom's side. My twin brother and I were the McCullough side of the family, my dad's side. And that's pretty much how we were raised. My grandmother hated my dad, so she hated my brother and I. I was the scapegoat. I got all the beatings, all of the abuse, pretty much growing up. My grandmother would say I was the ugly duckling that hopefully one day would be the beautiful swan. I was told to shut up, you're stupid, you act just like your son of a bitch and dad. That's the kind of affirmations I grew up with. So to speak in front of people, I learned in regeneration this year that I had a fear of man, because I was I don't have women around me because I'm fearful in a conversation I may not know enough about it, or it's just lies, right? That you grow up with until you can break those chains, right? You got to break the chains and you got to stop the lies. So I kind of grew up just feeling dumb and stupid. So I started babysitting for these 2 ladies who were having affairs with their husband with black men. Okay, why black men? To tell you that, because that became part of who I identified with. It seemed that I was fearful of white men, so I was attracted to black men. And so I didn't realize that for a while, but I realized later that that was kind of the trend. And I also knew that my mom hated it, so it kept her away from me. So I started babysitting these ladies, and one of the ladies played softball, so she would go to, I'd take the kids to the field, and there was this man there, and he started telling me how pretty I was, how smart I was, and what an amazing human being I was. Well, that was foreign to me, right? So he started grooming me and wooing me, and he was a pimp. And so he snatched me up, and he got me into teenage prostitution. So I was working in brothels from 14 to 17. And so I stopped in Anchorage with his group, I guess, if you call it whatever it is. And I moved to Fairbanks to get away from that. And so I worked in a boutique too. And so the lady that owned the boutique had one in Fairbanks, and so she was having struggles with it. And I'm really good at, I'm an interior designer, I have creativity, so I'm really good at putting clothes together and all that. So she sent me up there to help save her store. Well, in comes this beautiful black woman named Mama Ruth. Well, guess what she did? You're beautiful. Wow, you're so talented. You're incredible. You want to come live with me? Well, guess what she is? She owns a brothel. Right? So from one to the other. So looking back, it was a mother figure and a father figure that I didn't have. And so they groomed me in. So it was New Year's Eve. I was at a club. Back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, so they would call and tell us we have a trick. We had to come home and service that person, and I said, I'm not coming. So her husband came in and pulled me out, and he beat the holy crap out of me, literally, really bad. And then he had me service this gentleman, and he was very nice, didn't make me do anything, and so gave me the money that night I had a dream that I was on a plane and I had to get wherever I was going as quickly as possible. And I was awoken by Mama Ruth saying that my brother died and my mom was looking for me. So that was my alibi to get out. Let me back up. That same brother raped me when I was 10. So I had a hate-love relationship for him. Well, he committed suicide. And so that gave me my alibi to get out of that place. So I got back to Anchorage, we went to the funeral, and let me back up a little further. When I was 10 and my brother was 8, he decided to stay with my dad. And we were visiting for the summer, and he started to stay with my dad in Anchorage. We lived in Alaska. And when I got back home, my mom blamed me for not bringing my brother back. I'm 10, he was 8. So my mom, basically shut down and quit being my mom. And so that's really why I left at 14. She just is horrible, horrible. So at the funeral, my mom grabbed me and she said, had you brought him back, we wouldn't be here today. Okay, at that time I was 17 and a half. Yeah, around 17 and a half. So, you know, I hated my mom, just saying. So we got back to Alaska, and I knew I was to stay with my mom, but I knew I was gonna go back to the brothel, and I didn't really know what to do. So I heard this commercial, Great Way of Life, during the U.S. Air Force, Navy, Marine, Army. I'm like, boom. So I went down to recruiting. I stood outside, looked in the window, and I said, I think I look best in blue. And I joined the Air Force. True story. I was very Farrah Fawcett. I was actually really pretty back there, and I just, you know, all about me. So I joined the Air Force, and I got the heck away from my mom and everything I knew about all of that. And that was the defining moment in my life where I feel like Jesus really woofed me up and saved me. Just like the toxic relationship, Jesus saved me there too. Okay, I couldn't break away from that relationship, but he saved me. He pulled me away from it and said, baby girl, we're done here. We're never coming back here again. And I haven't. Amen. I haven't. So, okay, so now I'm in the Air Force. I'm in Germany, and I'm, you know, doing life, and you know, I'm doing better. I'm doing a lot better. So then I get out because, you know, I'm chasing a guy, and I get out of the Air Force, and you know, I'm just kind of existing in life, and I'm still like messing around with a lot of men because sex was a way for me to get attention or for anyone to notice me. So that's how I thought my worth was if I gave a man sex, then they would be with me, and I just wanted someone to be with me. And so I was working at a place, and I fell, quote, in love with my boss. So we had an affair. He was married. We had an affair. And then I realized that, you know, something wasn't right. And so I got this notion that I needed to just check out. So I came up with a way, and I tried to kill myself. And I tried really hard. I really did. I mean, what happened? Can I just first ask, has anyone in here ever tried to take their life? Okay. Okay. So I'll just keep it simple then. But what I did, by law, I should have died. Big time. Like massive. And God's like, no. And that was 45 years ago. And God used that a lot last year in Africa. And he's using it now, okay? Because he said, I didn't know 45 years ago that I was speaking here today, okay, to show you the power of Jesus, that he knew the plan back there. And my life verse is Jeremiah 29:11-13. For I have the plan, declared the Lord, not to harm you, but to prosper, give you a hope in the future. And it's perfect. God's plan is perfect. And even back then, it was perfect because it wasn't perfect for me, but it was perfect for him because he had the tools or the opportunity to use me 45 years at present, right? Just like your stories, okay? I don't know any of your stories, but my hope is that I will encourage you enough to know that your stories, because I have chills right now, your stories are just as powerful as my story and the next sister or brother's story. And it's Jesus' stories, okay? These are not our stories. They're Jesus' stories. They're our mess. But God has redeemed us all, right? And he went to the cross for our messy stories.
That's right.
And so that's the beauty of this, is that I want you to see what God is doing in me, not what I did in me, because it's a mess. But He is turning it around and making it into a message. So, so after I got, after I did what I did, my parents had to come to the hospital, and they were, like my mom's like, I can't believe you did this to our family, and I just sent them all away, like, just leave me alone. And I remember getting in the taxi to go home because I had no family. I mean, it was a crazy moment. And I remember this taxi cab driver said, "Oh, are you feeling better?" I go, "Well, not really. I'm actually really pissed off because I tried to kill myself and I couldn't even do that right." And he goes, "Well, I'm sure glad you didn't do it right." And he was like so kind, and I'll never forget him. Because he was the only one at that point that felt like he cared enough to say that. And I feel like that was just an angel from Jesus. Looking back now, that it really was. So I was so angry at myself because I'm like, okay, I must be so stupid. I can't even kill myself right. I mean, you all don't understand what I did. I mean, I tried my hardest and it did not work. And so I knew at that point I had to choose to live. And so that's what I've been doing. And there's been good times and bad times and everything in between. And as I cruised on in life, I got pregnant with one of my oldest son 30 years ago. Wednesday was his birthday. And prior to that, though, I had 2 abortions. And, that I think is one of the things I hate the most about my testimony is that, it was during my prostitution time, and, I believe that, it is what it is. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just, it's part of my story. And I know I've been forgiven from it, but it is still something that haunts me sometimes. And just, because I love, life and people, it is what it is. But I got pregnant with my son, and I knew I made an appointment to abort him. And I'm an adult now. I know right from wrong. But I felt like, I didn't have any choices. And I remember calling the abortion clinic, and they go, "Well, we need you to call back in 3 days after you think about it." And I'm like, "What?"
3 days?
3 days. And I'm like, what abortion clinic does that these days, And so that gave me enough time. I was in counseling, and then I talked to my therapist, and she's like, "Oh no, you don't have to do that." And I don't have to do that. I mean, that's how broken and I just didn't realize I had choices, right? Because my whole life I never had choices. I mean, what happened to me was based on what happened to me by other people. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep this baby. And so I did, and God used my sweet son, Justin, who is just the epitome of Christ. He's not perfect, but he is a beautiful human being, and I'm so grateful that he is part of my life. And so, so I kept him, and, I just got in church, and I just, slowly been creeping through life with Jesus, and in doing so, I met my husband, my ex-husband. His name is Kyle, and we got together and we dated for a year, and then we got married. And I had told him everything about my life, but he, on the other hand, did not. And so about 2 weeks before we got married, we moved my son into his house, into his bedroom. We did not have sex before marriage. And I had an apartment around the corner for where he lived, and so we moved him in and get him settled, so when we came back from our honeymoon, he would be settled. And he gave him his computer, a little Mac computer, and there was all these words on the screen, and I was like starting to read it, and it was my ex-husband's testimony about being a sex addict and all kinds of crazies. And I'm like, OMG. Who are you? And what am I about to get into? So I came out of the bedroom and I said, "Can you please go tell me what's on that screen?" And he came out very passive and just kind of laughed it off. Again, not knowing my self-worth, not knowing that I could do a timeout, we need to discuss this further. I married him anyways. And it was hell on wheels, let me just tell you. Yeah. So he's a serious sex addict, and just a lot of abuse. And so for 17 years, I was basically living in a prison. We had no sex. We had no conversation. He treated me horrid. Like it was just brutal. So I invested in service in church. You know, if I can't love in my family, I'm gonna love somebody. And so, but it became very dysfunctional. It was not healthy. And looking back, it was super not healthy. But I did the best I could with what I had. And, you know, I got angry with God for a while, and I said, God, you know, why would you do this, knowing my history of my sexual history? Why would you give me? He goes, I didn't. I didn't give you, Kyle. I actually woke you up 3 times, but you're the most stubborn daughter I know. And I, 3 times. The 4th time, I'm done. Okay? And so he said, go for it, sister. And so I did, and he's like, you know. So 19 years, I divorced him. And that's about 7 years ago. And I really have no contact with him. I mean, we have a son together, and that's the penalty of all of that, was that he has a narcissistic personality disorder, and so he took my son from me. So I became my son's nanny, and I've been his nanny his whole life. I've never been his mom. And we're just now coming around, and he's 24. But I praise God, because I'll take you know, an hour of goodness over nothing. But it's been really hard. It's been really hard being a mom to someone that I'm more of a nanny to. But you can't give up, because you know, you just can't. You just got to believe that the plan is perfect, and that's how I claim that. So his name is Austin, and he's turning 24 this Wednesday. So it's all good. It's all good. So now I'm divorced, right? And so now I'm trying to live life. And you know, when I got divorced, I guess social media was pretty popular, and dating sites, and you know, so I got involved in all that. And again, because I don't know my self-worth, and because the only way I know to get a man is sexual. For the first year out of the gates, as they say, I was pretty crazy. I mean, I'm gonna admit it. I was doing things I am not proud of. And yeah, so I had to take a time out. After about a year, I got date raped really bad, and I ended up in a house that I was keeping. I have a client, I was staying in her house. I don't even know how I got there, but I was in bad shape. And I didn't know if he, you know, if I got diseases, or I didn't know, I don't even know how I got there. And that scared me really badly. So I stopped that behavior instantly. You know, I had to spend a lot of money to get tested to make sure I didn't get any kind of crazy diseases and all kinds of things. But looking back on all of it to that point, I still see Jesus always taking care of me. Always. I mean, and I haven't told you half of my past, but more than half. But looking back, he was always there. Even when I wasn't a believer, right? He was always there, right? Because we're his daughters, and he created us. And you know, and I don't know your stories, but I know that there are women in here who have deep-rooted secrets that they've never shared with anybody. And they're just holding you hostage, and they're holding you back from what God has for you. And I'm encouraging with everything I have this time right now, is to be bold this weekend and tell somebody. Trust Jesus with it. Even if you have to go out and scream it out to him, I want this gone. I want you to take it from me. Because I can honestly say that I have peace now. You know, my soul is empty with goodness of just flowers growing. It's like a garden, you know, and we have to dig the roots out. And some of the roots, I say, are past, they're down our legs. You got to keep, you know when the soil gets so hard, you got to just keep putting water to get it softer, and you got to keep doing this. I mean, that's where some of my roots were, okay? But when you pull all that muck out, then you put new soil in, and you start getting those flowers. And what do flowers, look, I have chills. What do flowers do? They smell good. They're beautiful. They make you giddy, right? I feel like I'm the lady at the well going backwards through the, you know, have you seen The Chosen with her? Okay, y'all, when I was typing this sermon up, when I got to the lady at the well on my sermon, guess what showed up on the screen on my TV? The lady at the well. I was like, what? What? For sure. I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I got to remember to say that too. You know, I'm like, and I just was like, yes, that's me. That's all of us, right? Doesn't mean that we slept with 5 men, but we have 5 problems. We have 5 sins, right? We have 5 things that are bothering us. But look at her. She went back, the Messiah told me everything about me. You know, as she was literally running, right? Back to tell everyone that she met the Messiah, the one who loves us. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful picture of, you know, she walked up there in the heat, so hot and so ashamed. And then she turns around and meets him, and then look at what happens. Freedom in Christ. So anyway, so now I'm living in the city, right? And I'm thinking I'm going to be a city girl, and I realized that I was living in a prison. I was in a high-rise apartment in Dallas, and it was literally like living in a hotel. And so on Friday nights, I'm being very transparent. On Friday nights, I would get a bottle of wine. I can't believe what I'm about to tell you all. I'm going to just be very transparent. I get naked, and I would just scroll all night long on dating sites. And I drink a whole bottle of wine, and then I'd feel so disgusted with myself. I go shower, and I go to bed. And I did that for 6 months. Yeah. I was so in a dark spot in life going, I just don't want to do this anymore. I wasn't suicidal, but I was just disgusted with myself. Like, you're just such an imposter. You claim you're a Christian. Like, Jesus did not let me go on a mission trip that year. He's like, you are not representing me. You're not going. You need to figure out, sister, what's going on with you, but you're not walking with me. And so, so one day my lease was about up, and I said, okay, God, what am I going to do? So he said, you're going to do tiny living, and you're going to be sinful in life. But if you want to represent me for the rest of your life, you have to get authentic, transparent, and you got to know me. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to do that. So I sold everything. I bought a 32-foot trailer. I gutted it. I remodeled it. I found a place in Dallas to park it. I made a beautiful outdoor patio, and I live a simple, simple life. But I love big. I'm authentic. I'm transparent. And I'm learning Jesus every day. Every day.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, how do we find our assignments, right? So how we do it. You have to surrender daily. You can't do it once a month, once a year, every morning, and you can't do it at night. You gotta do it first thing in the morning. Before you leave, before you talk to your family, you gotta get up and you gotta say, good morning, Jesus. What's my assignment? I surrender everything to you. And I promise you, with everything I have right now, it will change your life for the best. It's the most exciting times I've ever had this past year. So God, once I left here, He had me go into a program called Regen, which is Regeneration. It's a 12-step program. I highly recommend it. It basically teaches you to get rid of anything that keeps you up and down with Him. pride, control, sex, drugs, alcohol, anger, whatever it may be, any sin that keeps you from Jesus, Regen will help you get rid of it. Now, can it come back? Absolutely, because sin is sin. But it's going to help identify and give you tools to fight wanting to go back. You know, like I don't turn my back anymore. Occasionally I do, but only for a minute. I don't stay there very long, okay? You know, my ex-boyfriend comes about here and there, you know. I may turn and go, oh yeah, like especially here because we did motorcycle out in this area. It triggers some things, but I don't stay in it very long, okay? My mom, so this is what I want to tell you. In Regen, we have to do amends. Well, my amends was to my mom. I haven't seen her, I haven't talked to her in 28 years, and I've talked to her a few times in 28 years, but I haven't seen her in 28 years. I haven't been back to Alaska, where I'm from, in 45 years. And so I made an agreement with my group that I was going to either mail her the letter or burn it. That was my choice. And the leader goes, well, why don't we just pray about it and see what God has? That was Tuesday. Sunday I'm at church and I'm singing I Surrender All. He goes, great, because guess what? Thursday you're going to Alaska.
Wow.
And I went, slit my wrist. What? He goes, yeah, so after church you're gonna get a ticket and you'll be going to Alaska on Thursday.
Wow.
And I'm like, no, all right, fine. So that's what I did. I got a ticket and I went to Alaska. I did not have a clue. My mom was in the hospital. She had a UTI, which causes sometimes elderly people to go into a psychotic state of mind. So she was a little psychotic at that point, but I ended up going. She's legally blind. So when I got there, she thought she was dreaming at first. I actually had a nurse go in with me because I hadn't seen her in 28 years. And so, so we chatted for 5 hours. It was really weird because it was a roller coaster of good, bad, and ugly. But let me back up. 2 days before I came there, I looked up my pimp. I went on Facebook to see if I could find him, and I found the name. The guy kind of looked like him, but he was younger, but you know, African Americans don't really show their age, so I thought, maybe, but he'd be about 80. I didn't really think so, but maybe. So I said, hey, do you own a body shop in Anchorage, Alaska? Didn't hear anything, so now I'm in Alaska. And this was Thursday. God said, you're going to go downtown Anchorage on Friday morning. Ask my mom's friend to take me. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I about to do? So I get up, I go, she drops me off. Now, let me just explain. In Anchorage, Alaska, nobody wears any color. There's no color anywhere. It's just like walking trees. I, on the other hand, look like a box of crayons. Literally like a box of crayons. I mean, I'm like walking. He has me walking. Now, I was Ubering all day Thursday. Why can't I do that on Friday? So I got dropped off, and now I'm walking. And I kid you not, I have a photograph. A moose as big as that wall, just right across the street from me, going, a bird. Colorful bird. And I'm like, no, it's a person, and you need to stay on your side, but you need to go one way or the other so I can keep moving because it's cold and I don't want to have a conversation with you. So we stood there looking at each other for a good 5 minutes, and finally it decided to leave, and I went this way, and then it dawned on me what I was about to do. I was actually walking to the brothel where I used to work. Yeah. And so I got there, and it's on 12th Street. On 10th Street, a white truck slowly passed me. And I'm like, they're probably thinking, who is that? A box of crayons walking on the street. And literally, it was hilarious. And so he circled twice. And I wasn't scared, but I was wondering what he was wanting. And so I finally get to 12th Street. Now, let me back up. I forgot the best part. That morning, I got a ding from that person I reached out to. It was his son.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And he said, my dad has a body shop. Who is this? And I said, well, it's a friend of your dad's and I'm in town. And I was just going to say, hey. He said, well, he doesn't like for you to just drop in. Here's his phone number.
Right.
So I text him and I said, hey, long time no see. I'm in town. I was going to stop by and say hey. And I sent a picture of myself to him. Now, I'm not sure it went through or not because I didn't get any response whatsoever. So now I'm going through that motion. This guy shows up, this truck guy shows up, and I get to the brothel and there's no one there. And I just stood there and I cried, and I just cried and cried. Yeah, it was rough. But I was also grateful. Grateful that God has taken that mess, that awful, horrible mess that I probably would have died in. And he saved me. And now he's using it for a message in Africa. Because that's what I do in Africa. I am involved in a ministry there called Morehouse, and we rescue girls out of sex trafficking, alcohol and drug abuse, any kind of destruction. I raised money, $450 on this side. We'll put them through Celebration Recovery, which is another 12-step here in America that we took over there 5 years ago. And so for, we've been in place for about 2.5 years now. We've saved 28 girls. Praise the Lord. Yeah. And it's so beautiful because this last fall I was able to meet them all because I've just been, doing Zoom calls, but we had a big, huge celebration party for them, and it was amazing. It was amazing what God can do. And so anyways, I called an Uber to go back to see my mom, and that truck shows up again. This time I had him stop. And he rolled down his window, and let me tell you, this dude was the most beautiful human being I've ever seen. He had the most piercing blue eyes, and he had gray hair and a short beard, raggedy white truck. And I said, what are you doing? Why are you following me? He says, I'm not following you. He says, I'm just making sure you're okay. Are you okay? Now, I'm snot crying. I'm okay. But I'm snot crying. And I said, yeah, I'm okay. And he goes, okay. And he just drove off. And then my driver showed up, and I got in the car. And this is what God said. Kariann, I have walked every step you have walked in your entire life. And I've always been by your side, making sure you're okay.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. No, I was really not crying. I was weeping like a baby. And I get back, and I talked to my mom for a couple more hours, and then I left, and that's the end. That's the end of that era. And I wasn't going to go to my house where I was abused in and stuff, but I ended up having to go for my brother, and it wasn't even there what I needed to get for him, but it was good because God took me there. And what's really unique about it is my mom has painted her house a blue color. And the brothel that I save women out of in Africa is the exact same blue color.
Wow.
And I didn't recognize it until my guys in Africa made a point to it. And so God has laid on my heart to write a book. And the name of the book is The Day I Chose Blue. And so I was that little girl in that blue dress. But now I'm set free. I no longer have to deal with any of that horrible time of life. And I can use it to glorify Him. And I'm so grateful. And I love the color blue because if you look at the sky, it's just like, the sky is blue, the water is blue. That's why I love it out here. That water is so beautiful, right? It gives me peace. I love kayaking. I mean, when I'm in my kayak on the water, it's the closest I am to Jesus because it's just so calming and beautiful. So getting back to how do you find your assignment? You have to surrender every day, no matter what. No matter if you want to, no matter if you want to do anything good for the day, it isn't about you. It's about Him. And He will give you, you can wake up and you can feel like you can't move, you don't want to move, but He will give you the energy, He will give you an assignment, and you'll see it. So I have an assignment book, and I write my assignments down in my book. And it's just fun sometimes when you're just sitting outside and reading, wow, I remember that, it was so cool, right? And it could be tiny, it's just saying to a lady, that color is beautiful on you. or it could be being in a retreat in front of all of you. I don't know what your assignments will be, but I know God has them for you. And when you take yourself out of you, you know, remember this person right here, and I believe we all have this person right here. This is not God's person. Mm-hmm. This is the devil's person, keeping you from allowing and receiving God's assignment, God's love, God's power, God's glory. Okay, so you got to get out of the way. And when you do that, he's going to give you your lane, right? So that's what I tell my girls now, the people I talk to. God's going to give you your lane. Stay in it. Don't get in another lane. Okay? It's easy for us. We're impatient. We want to turn right because there's too much traffic in your lane. No. Don't turn right. Stay in your lane. It may take you a little further. It may take you a little longer. But the blessing on the end of that road, what if I didn't go to Alaska?
Right.
I had absolutely no idea I was going to be dealing with any of that. But because I was obedient and I stayed in that lane, God blessed me and freed me from that part of my life that I have closure on for good. Mm-hmm. My mom is now in a facility, a really nice facility. She will die there and I'm done. I don't have to be responsible for my mom. You know, I'm sorry, my mom. You know, I respect her as my mom, but she was not my mom. But I don't want harm for her. I want her to have a good life. And I know she's being taken care of really well now. And that's what I asked God to do when I left. And he didn't even make me go back to please don't make me go back and have to clean the house. Please. And he did it. They took care of it. So that's my story, ladies. If anyone has any questions or any talks or anything, it's open to you all now. Okay. Anything? 10 minutes? Talk about anything you want to talk about?
I think that white truck stands out to me because I believe the Lord sent an angel.
Oh yeah, he was an angel. He was truly an angel. And it's funny because I had that evening and I was like, dang, I should have got his number. He could have taken me to dinner.
And it was white, which represents purity.
Yes.
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 Blue is the power of God.
I know. Yeah. It was awesome. It was so beautiful. And I took pictures because I knew no one would believe me, especially the moose. And I asked God why he gave me the moose, and he said, Carrie, because there's nothing too big that I can't handle. Nothing. And what's even better is I had to come through Aspen to come back home, and I got bumped there, and so the next day I had a whole day waiting for my flight, and the mountains around that airport, like whoever designed that lobby, was nothing but tall, open windows and mountains. And I worked on my Bible study at the time and just sat there in awe of the beauty and just and he kept saying, do you see these mountains? There's nothing too big for me. And there's nothing he can't handle. Nothing. But again, if we believe the lies, we believe that there is, he won't handle that one. Nope, not that one. That is a lie. And don't, I'm 60 and I know most of you are way under that. Don't, I wish I was 40 and someone said I don't have to spend 20 more years going through what I went through. But I don't regret it because it is my story, right? But encouraging you, don't let him rob your days. Let him grow flowers in your souls. It's so much prettier than the muck. Like a stinky, pond. Ugh. Yeah.
I remember you last year. You were one of my first. You came in and we made contact. You look so different. You are different. Everything about you is different. I'm thinking to myself, I want to see the picture of you in the group last year because you are so different. And if people weren't here last year, It is, everything about you.
Thank you.
And you were beautiful then.
Yeah.
Beautiful then.
Yeah.
But it was different.
So light in their face now.
Everything, confidence, everything. And I heard your voice this morning, I went, I remember.
Wow.
Only Jesus.
You came in so transparent right off the get-go though.
Yeah, you did last year.
Yeah.
Share it and release it.
Yeah, I didn't want it, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the sad thing is, sometimes we can't identify where we are, right? Like, I didn't realize I was involved in a narcissistic personality disorder, man. And I didn't realize, I knew that what I was involved in was not good. But it, you know, I didn't understand. It is as addicted as heroin, that personality, dating someone of that personality. And I was addicted to him. It was literally God rescued me out of that room like this, and I literally heard him say, baby girl, we're done. You will never have to do what he is having you do ever again. And I haven't seen him since. I've texted him a few times, you know, in a year, but no. And I pray for him. I pray for him because, you know, he's broken. You know, we all have sin, and his sin is no worse than my sin or your sin, you know. And so I do pray for him. And that's the other thing I encourage you is the people that have harmed you, you know, pray for them. Because sin is sin, okay? And I think that's where we get caught up sometimes. It's like, oh, well, you did this and you did that. No. God took all of it.
Yeah, that's right.
All of it for all of us to the cross. Okay? So we're not here to judge people's sin. You know, we're to love each other. And so that's what I try to do. I mean, I love loving big. It's my most joy. When I skip away knowing that, you know, it's not about me. You know, and that I do pray, God, let, you know, my day before I hit the road, please, God, let them see you through me today. That's what I say to him. I have these bracelets that I wear. They're the Buddha bracelets. You may know them. They're gold and different colors. I wear them all the time. I just did them for that skit. And they're my prayer bracelets. And I put them on each morning. I take them off and I put them on. And each one will represent a group of ladies or a group of something. And then I keep 3 over here. And it's just a reminder all day for me to be praying constantly for the people that I love or what God has put on my heart, you know, to pray for. So there's all kinds of ways you can get your assignment, but the key is you have to surrender you in order for him to give you his assignment.
That's right.
Okay, and that's the key. And when you surrender it, then it's his responsibility, and that's the freeing part. It's like it's not about you anymore. So if it doesn't work, okay, well, Jesus, that was your problem, not mine. But kind of, right? I surrendered it. You don't tell me what to do. Now you got to be careful though, because you may not want that assignment. That's the character that's like, okay. Yeah, don't ask for what you don't want, because you might get it. But it is so much easier. And I honestly have peace. Like, I work for millionaires, okay? And it gives me anxiety going into their house, and they want more, and they have so much, and we got to clear out so we can bring in new. And I'm thinking, I love my simple life. My house is super cute. It's simple, right? You don't need all that stuff.
They're just trying to fill a God-shaped hole.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah.
So, you know, later on you're going to get something tomorrow, but I'll just touch on it a little bit. God gave me this vision that we are all a piece of his masterpiece. So he gave me this puzzle ministry. And so I've been passing out pieces of puzzles to people all over now. Random people I know. And I just give them, and I just let them know that, you know, you are perfectly and wonderfully made, and that you are the perfect, just the way you are, and you are a piece of God's masterpiece. And I was at a concert in Austin a couple weeks ago, and I gave one to the bartender. And when I walked away, I heard the other little girl go, "Oh, Joey, you're a piece of God's masterpiece." And I I felt bad later because I'm like, oh, well, she must think she's not. And God goes, no, she's not thinking that because I didn't choose her for that piece. And it wasn't because she's not. It's just, again, it was my assignment. It wasn't, I mean, it was his assignment. It wasn't my assignment. So now I just carry them. And when he tells me, and it's so cool, like another group of people, 4 people, we took their picture and I gave them all one. And when we walked away, they're like looking at it. Like it's some magical thing. It's like, what's gonna happen here? We're in Austin, y'all. Never know. God love Austin. Keep it weird.
Weird.
Yes. Yes. Well, one more thing. So while I was here this weekend, this is how God's assignment, right? I had no clue this was about to hit me. She approached me. Would you be willing to come to the prison in Waco and do your skit?
That's good.
Sure. Not a problem. Oh, would you be willing to lead region at the prison? And I'm thinking, wow. That's an hour and 45 minutes one way for 9 months. Would I?
Yep.
Yep. Because it's not my assignment. It's God's assignment. And what the blessings I would miss by saying no. So yes, all of it. But no, okay. Yeah, Father God, we love you. We thank you so much for this beautiful day. We thank you for taking a crazy mess but making it into such a great message. And I'm praying, God, in Jesus' name right now that the ladies here, they would see that their mess is really a blessing too. And I pray for each lady here, God, I pray that they would be bold, that they would release it all at the foot of the cross this weekend. And I pray, God, that again, that no one would leave here without just leaving it here at this beautiful place that you created, these beautiful mountains and cliffs and just all this beautiful beauty here, that they would just leave it somewhere and just walk away with a free soul so that you can plant all the goodness that you have for them. And I just pray that they would really receive your assignment daily and that they would surrender daily. And we just give you the glory for what you're about to do in their lives. And we just thank you so much for your son Jesus and that cross that took on all of our sin and have already paid the penalty for that. And we just give you the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen.